I didn't do it intentionally.
Not this week.
Bridget tweeted, the left hates President Trump because his masculinity intimidates them. And you just said Trump is the least masculine public figure I can think of. I'm not even being partisan. He's objectively soft, whiny, preening, brittle, insecure, tries too hard to appeal masculine, but gets it wrong every time. I could do this all day. I mean, oh my God, the guy in the girdle and the lifts and the diaper. Oh my God. Yeah.
Makeup.
This is makeup.
This is one of the things that is part of the new timeline in the space-time continuum caused by the Hadron Collider. the fact that now this definition of masculinity circulates around Donald Trump, of all people. Oh, I mean, for God's sake, everything we learned growing up about what it means to be masculine is completely steamrolled by this preening, brittle, whiny, self-involved, just so fragile with his ego. This guy is, as the definition of masculinity, is the exact opposite of everything that we would normally consider to be masculine. It's so hilarious that there's an entire movement of people who look at Donald Trump with his orange face, just pancake makeup and the shoulder pads to build out his teeny tiny shoulders. These are all things that make him the least masculine person ever.
Under those suits, he has like ballerina shoulders. They're just little. It's all foam.
Right.
And, by the way,
Don Jr. inherited, and you got to stop me from talking about this because I could go off about how not masculine Donald Trump is probably for the next 5 hours. So I'm just going to stop.
Let's do it.
And as someone who has pulled your junk out of a thicket on a bike trail, I can attest to
yes.
Bob Cesca's manhood. I can tell you in spandex about Bob Cesca. Bob, we were just saying, it sort of is the topic of the hour, what Jamie Raskin was just saying, and what we've been talking about. The media will not report really what is just the case. Republicans are the party of political violence. It is not both sides. From January 6th up through New Mexico, through this. Who is this? This is just a random thing. You won't hear this reported probably anywhere. An unidentified Chicago man went on a violent attack that apparently targeted the LGBTQ community at a bar in Rogers Park, which is you live there, Chris. Right, very inclusive, great neighborhood. He approached a man and woman when they were leaving a vehicle, started screaming anti-homosexual comments and homophobic slurs. He then suddenly walked away from the group after the man and woman entered the restaurant. He returned with a hammer and smashed the entire window out of the bar. Thank God, once again, there were no injuries. But it's almost a miracle there were no injuries in these New Mexico shootings, right?
Even if there were a legitimate intention with some of these or all of these cases of political violence that we're seeing, this far-right extremism, even if the grievances were legitimate, it would obviously still be completely over the top and overreaction, just the worst possible thing that you can do. But because it's based on well-financed propaganda, to the point where, for example, I think we sometimes overlook this as far as how certain segments of the country, how 74 million Americans are being radicalized right now. Sinclair Broadcasting owns over 280 TV stations across the country in about 80 markets, meaning they own more than one outlet in some of these markets. And they are constantly pumping at the local level all of this pro-Trump, far-right propaganda into the softened skulls of their audiences. And we talk about Fox News a lot. We talk about people like Alex Jones and so on. But we can't overlook the role of Sinclair Media in the radicalization of so many Americans. And that's what's leading us to this point where these people feel as though the only recourse is to either commit these acts of terror or directly try to murder people. Which you can only take the situation in Albuquerque as an attempt to kill Democratic officials in the name of Donald Trump, in the name of this ridiculous propaganda that they're being fed on a constant basis. I don't know how it ends. I don't know what shakes them out of this. I don't know what can possibly stop this train that has left the station.
Speaking of broadcasting, have I mentioned to you that I am a big fan of the Bob Cesca Show? Okay.
Yes, I'm honored. That's so nice of you.
Here's my point. Bob Cesca, 10 times the broadcaster, half these right-wing hacks are. Thom Hartmann, Randy Rhoads, and it's just, you're right, Bob, that is part of the problem, is we all broadcast from a little tiny space that, we're allowed. My basement, your little 40-year-old virgin nerd cave there that you're in.
That's true, yes, yeah.
I like that.
But it's just, I'm so sick of that horse liberals just aren't good at broadcasting. It's not the case. It's because right-wingers own all of these stations. Of course they're going to put right-wing crap on there, but you're right, Bob. It's part of what perpetuates this cycle of violence.
Yeah. In fact, I was a guest on the Joe Walsh podcast Monday morning this week.
Okay. He's come to the light.
The Joe Walsh, not the Eagles guy, not the rock star guy, the other Joe Walsh.
Right.
And the whole point of the conversation was the alleged liberal media. And at one point he brought up the fact that why aren't there more liberal talk shows on AM talk radio? And the first thing I said, which is what I always say, which is that if more liberal shows were like the Stephanie Miller Show, then there would be many more liberal talk radio shows.
And the Bob Cesca Show. No, after you. No, you first.
I'm not on the radio. I wish I were, but I'm not on the radio.
You are right now.
Oh no, you first.
I am right now. Yeah,
I'm barely on the radio, but go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, but the other thing is, in addition to that, in addition to just a basic style thing, a basic tone of a show, the Democratic Party, we've got 82 million chefs in the kitchen. Yeah. We all think we each individually know how best to run the country, whereas Republicans tend to be more in lockstep. And so consequently, programming for 82 million separate points of view on the Democratic side, it's a little bit more difficult. You've been able to nail it because you approach your show with a sense of humor and a familiarity and just an amazing collection of personalities.
Thank you. Well, the
a lot of shows don't have that.
The connective tissue is poo. You know what that is. That's what it is.
And lots of rumbly tumblies in the middle of a segment. That too. So in that regard, we're always behind the eight ball when it comes to a traditional media, and I hope that will change at some point. But the Republicans have been able to use this platform, AM Talk Radio. I mean, that's an enormous radicalization platform for this movement, for this propaganda. And that's, I think we underestimate AM Talk Radio and the Sinclair stations, which is television, at our own peril. Those are Bob, two of the biggest dangers.
Yeah, you've been so good at pointing it out. Just, we always say the cruelty is the point, but you've been good at, you were on Twitter, you just, for many years now, Gutfeld and Jesse Waters have been kicking homeless people for cruel laughs, like Jesus would. I mean, the cruelty is the point. It goes right up through their policies of taking people's Medicare and Social Security. I mean, it's, and also you.
And then the other video was that guy who I think works at a museum, and he was standing outside the sidewalk with a hose, spraying down this homeless woman, who, then all of her stuff, all of her worldly possessions are now soaked and freezing cold.
Yeah, that's funny.
One of the cruelest things I've ever seen. Yeah. I was so shocked at seeing that video. Have we really descended that far as a society that people feel like that's proper behavior? That's okay. Well,
that's what I mean.
Okay to treat people that way.
George Santos is an aberration. They are just a party of just like Trump, liars.
There's this cruel whimsy that they possess, and it was played out on Fox News Channel, as you were saying, where Greg Gutfeld, Jesse Waters turned this into a punchline. And of course, anyone who saw the video of that woman getting sprayed with the hose knew right away that this was going to become, a thing on Fox News Channel. Yeah. And shocking, because Jesse Waters, for example, made his career out of going to places like Union Station and stalking homeless people, tormenting them on camera for jokes on Bill O'Reilly's show.
And by the way,
and that's and by the way, I was going to shock that he's doing it still.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I was going to say this is why we feel like you can't even make up these headlines. George Santos stole money from a dying veteran's dying dog.
Oh my God, this story!
Dying service dog. I mean, it's just, but it's everything's turned up to 11 now. The cruelty. You and by the way, as an actual alpha liberal, I love how you just always call out there. Who is this? Madison Cawthorn, eats a raw piece of an animal to put his alpha male skills on display.
Oh my
There's
God.
video of him with blood.
Sure.
And you just said he can brag about being an alleged alpha male between bouts of uncontrollable vomiting and diarrhea from the parasites he's eating. Yes.
I also want to point out, how the hell did Madison Cawthorn get his wheelchair out there in the woods to hunt that animal, kill it, and then carve it up and eat a raw piece of it? Like, obviously he did not do that himself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the power of wanting to own the libs.
Yep.